Hello and welcome to another More Than a Game episode. We're live on YouTube, and also we're going to be uploading this as a podcast later on in the day. So great to have everyone with us. My name's Tommie C, obviously. Joined today by Jesse and Killian. We're going to be unpacking the 4 matches from last night in the Premier League. Going to be chatting a little bit about some of the transfers in the last couple of days or the last week since the our Premier League preview pod, that mega pod that turned into 2.5 hours worth of audio. But look, I guess before we get off into more than moment of the week and own goal, Jesse, how are you feeling, mate? Are you just did you get any sleep last night after all the excitement in that Liverpool match?
I've certainly grown a few grey hairs, Tommie, that's for sure. Hell of a game. Obviously, we'll get to that. But a few shout-outs this week, actually. A shout-out to a good friend of mine, Callum Campbell, and also Matthew Wilson and Matt Steele, who are the Moafa Fantasy Football Competition, the Brains Trust over there in New Zealand, doing a great job with fantasy football. And also to Tommy Fitzgerald, a good friend of mine as well. We made a sensational batch of lemon honey ginger LHG, which I'm currently drinking, and LHG, it's good and it's rewarding. So thanks, boys, and I know that they'll be tuning in to this pod at some stage. So just a shout out to some of our fans across the ditch as well there, Tommy. But yeah, to answer your original question, a bit dusty today after all those games.
Mate, I hear you. And Killian, great to have you back on the pod. It's obviously been a little while since we've had you on, but great to have you back. Did you get any sleep last night, or did you stay up until 7 o'clock this morning watching all the games?
Oh, I wish. I stayed up. Lucky enough, the Arsenal game was the early fixture, as you guys know, so I did stay up for that. And I just left. We had a bit of a kind of a catch up with a few kind of old housemates and stuff, all via Zoom. And I had to duck off early to catch the Arsenal game, so they weren't pretty impressed with me. But I was happy enough in the front room with that game on. And then we watched the first, I'm going to say, 25 minutes of the Palace Southampton game, which we'll unpack later. But I got the goal.
Indeed. Very good. I'm not really sure there was much else to see in that game, but like you said, we'll come back to that in a moment. All right, boys, let's crack on, shall we? Jesse, you got a moment of the week for us?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combined one. Guaita for Crystal Palace just been unstoppable. I guess it's the other way around, isn't it? Basically, they just couldn't get the ball past him. You always love it when you just see a sensational goalkeeper performance. Killian, I'm sure you can attest to that.
I was about to mention his performance. It was like, actually, I went to bed before I could see some of his heroics, but I love it. Special saves. Anybody who picked Shay Adams in their fantasy team this week will be absolutely devastated after a point blank save. And also, I'm sure Guaita will talk a little bit more about later on, but I have to say, just the Leeds Liverpool game in general has to be a moment of the week, because regardless which side you barrack for, what an advertisement for attacking football that was.
That game was wild, and as we've already said, we're going to be unpacking that shortly as well. Killer, what about you, mate? Have you got a moment of the week for us?
Yeah, so my moment of the week is a bit of a slight personal one as well. So we all have seen, obviously, Doherty's just been a big money move to Spurs, and so he left his previous club before Wolves. He was at Bohemians, which is a kind of a League of Ireland team, not particularly well off. Just obviously, we're delighted.
Not heaps of money in Ireland, is there, in terms of the football competitions? Yeah, not
heaps. So obviously, he never actually made an appearance for Bohemians. He was kind of playing a pre-season friendly against Wolves about 10 years ago, and they liked what they saw, and they bought him for, I think it was about 75,000. Not much, but I mean, all right. If you sell a player for 75k once a year in the Irish League, you're doing pretty well. And what they didn't forget for sure was that there was a sneaky little 10% sell-on clause as part of his contract. So as part of the obviously roughly 15 million move, they pocketed a nice 1.5 million from that transfer.
Huge.
There was a little tweet that went not viral, but it kind of made a few kind of news reports as well. And it's from actually my cousin, my aunt's brother, so not a blood relative, but still very close. And he's former president of Bohemians and current commercial director. And his tweet was great. It was, "Oh my days, I've had his contract saved on my desktop for the last 10 years in the hope that this..."
Awesome.
And so obviously a great windfall for the club and a nice moment.
I'm sure there are a few Ginai that were consumed after that the contract was signed.
That's awesome.
Very, very good. All right. One for me though. We're going. I think I'm not even sure if it's League One or League Two, but we're headed to Grimsby Town in the English Football League Trophy, which I'm pretty sure is a competition that's played by League One, League Two, and a lot of the Premier League under 23 sides. Grimsby Town's Lewis Boyd. You probably don't know the name, and God knows whether or not you will hear his name again. But 15-year-old Lewis Boyd, he made his debut for Grimsby Town, came off the bench, and the young bloke scored. So it makes him not just, I think, their youngest debutant, but by far their youngest goal scorer. I tell you what, it's pretty ridiculous that there's 15-year-olds playing professional football. But for one to be scoring goals as well, that's even better as well.
Yeah. And Grimsby, another location that's often covered by the More Than the Game podcast. So I'm sure they're loving the extra attention as well.
Exactly. They'll be mark it down on their calendar as what a moment for them. Killian, have you got an own goal for us, mate?
I suppose we'll probably unpack the own goal that is West Ham United a little bit later.
Can we not? I just prefer to skip over it.
If you thought things couldn't get any worse with the men's team, the women's got absolutely pummeled 9-1 by Arsenal. So I suppose West Ham in general would be my own goal, and a particular note on that women's result.
Just the club in general right now. Not a hell of a lot of fun.
What about A-League memes saying Caitlin Ford came on for the late winner, which was the final goal, which made it 9-1, I think it is. That was a great tweet.
I did see as well. I think by that point, the West Ham ladies team were down to 10 players as well. So, yeah, geez, grim times for them. Jesse, what about you? You got an own goal for us?
I think in general, just the international duties that the players have had to undergo with, in all disciplines and outside of sport, we've been so careful, or at least on our side of the world, about opening up borders and too quickly and getting people exposed to the virus again. And yet in Europe, all the borders are open, or most of them were open, and players just went, and you have the Czech Republic losing most of their squad to it. And
I think it was the whole squad.
Just like... It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if it was for something critical like Euros qualification, I'm pretty sure all that's sort of wrapped up now. So if it's just the Nations League, surely you take a look at yourself and go, all right, is this going to happen? Is it going to happen? We've got the Euros next year, which we're all looking forward to. Should we be letting players go back on international duties so quickly? And then half of them come back with the coronavirus, completely screw fantasy football, completely screw the coaches and managers who have been trying to get them ready for the season and a short turnaround. For me, the international break that we've just had was a massive own goal.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and not just I guess the timing of it was kind of strange as well. Like, you've got the Premier League that's about to looking to wind up, and it meant that I think there was only as a month in between 6 weeks between the season finishing and restarting, and now for the 2 weeks leading up to the season starting, none of the players were at their respective clubs, so pretty disrupted introduction to the season, I guess, and there were a lot of clubs that were without players for friendlies and stuff like that. So, yeah, not a lot of fun, I guess, for a lot of those clubs that in their preparations. For me, though, I kind of struggled to find one, because, I mean, just with football being back, it was just an exciting time to be a football fan. But if there was one thing I had to pick out, it had to be with a new season, there's a new Premier League intro music, and I've got to say, this season's intro music is pretty underwhelming. Don't rate it. Doesn't pump me up. Doesn't get me energized. Not all about it.
It's even worse, Tommie, is come into the lounge, putting the Premier League on, expecting to hear the old theme that we've come to love, and it never happened. You're left sort of metaphorically grasping at thin air, and I was pretty devastated just to be like, is that it? The other music we've kind of had, I can't remember how many years that theme's been on there, but it just gets you pumped. As soon as you hear the theme, you get pumped for the game, and I was a bit underwhelmed by this new one.
Yeah, there's been a couple of rippers over the last couple of years. Obviously, I think the high watermark was that Kasabian song from like the early 2010s. And then there was the most recent one, which was really just, I guess, an instrumental, really, wasn't it? But like that was like a 5-minute song that like they took like a 45-second clip out of it, and they would just play it on loop on Optus Sports, and that loop used to send me absolutely bonkers. But I tell you what, it always seemed to get me fired up whenever there was a game about to start, though. Alrighty, boys. Look, before we kick off into the matches from last night, there's been a couple of transfers since we did our Premier League preview pod. We'll just roll through these pretty quickly. Jesse and Killer, let us know whether you rate them or don't rate them as a move. First up, you got Areola headed to Fulham, the goalkeeper from PSG on loan for 12 months. What do you think? Rate it? Don't rate it? Killer?
I don't mind him. I do rate it personally. Probably hasn't had much game time in the last couple of seasons. Obviously, first year at Paris and then at Real last year as well. So, I don't know. It just kind of, the worry with keepers, I think, is when you don't have that extended time in goals, you can kind of go downhill pretty quickly. So he needs to get into the team pretty quickly if he's to kind of, I suppose, maybe keep his career up. I rate him. I think he's a good signing, and he's been around the big leagues as well, which is probably something that you need at a club like Fulham, especially newly promoted. But I suppose time will tell.
It's a bit of a shame for him. It's a bit of a shame for him. I mean, I rate it, but it's a bit of a shame for him that he basically is going to be stepping into a game of red ass to start the season. He basically just has to turn around, pull his pants down, and accept that Fulham's just going to be getting pelted from here to the end of the season. And if he can withstand all the bullets that are going to be coming his way, good luck to him.
I really hope that the listeners understand what the game of red ass is. Otherwise, that is a really weird comment if we're taken out of context.
He's done a bit of a reverse journey of Sergio Rico as well, who's now at PSG. I suppose Fulham is kind of the big name keepers.
Yeah. One player that's left a big club in England is Angelino. Angelino. He's loan to RB Leipzig has been extended for another 12 months. Good move, bad move, Jesse?
Good move. He's fit. As far as the system last year, he fit in really well. So I've got no issues with that move, and I think it's good for both parties. He's not going to be getting that kind of game time for City, so yeah.
Killer?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen much of him last season as well, but again, he seems like someone that they rate. So setting him on loan, getting good game time, it's always crucial. It's always good.
Ollie Watkins to Villa. Now, this one comes with a big price tag as well, £28 million. Jesse, what do you think?
Again, good. This is all good stuff. Villa need all the help they can get, and he's the kind of player that was just too good not to be in the Premier League this year. I really wanted to see him at least feature in one team this year in the Premier League. So it's a good move for both parties, I think.
Killer?
Yeah, so there's a lot of players I'm excited to see them test themselves in the Premier League as well. He's definitely one of them as well. Obviously, scored loads of goals. Villa need exactly that. Can he make the step up? I mean, a lot of people have tried making the step up, Championship, not quite making it in the Premier League. So all eyes on him at the moment, I think, just to see if he can kind of make that step up.
Fair enough. Jamal Lewis, he was in the Premier League last season at Norwich, but this year he was going to be down in the Championship. He's gone to Newcastle for $15 million. Jesse, rate the move?
Yep, like it. As you know, he was linked to Liverpool for a while. We just weren't happy with the transfer fee that Norwich were proposing, so ended up dropping him and swapping out of jumping out of the race. So he was definitely something that we were linked to, and we were keen on him. And he's a very good young English player. So again, I felt like too good to go back down to the Championship. So I think it's a good fee for Newcastle. We were talking the other day, I think it was with Stomo, about whether or not he was a right back or a left back. I was under the impression that he was more than competent to play left back, which is probably a good thing for Newcastle, because I think they need cover in both positions.
Killer?
Yeah, same. Really impressed me for most of last season. Lots of potential. He's going to get a lot of game time like he did last season, so he'll keep developing. So at Liverpool, it would have been a shame. Again, he would have been probably spending a lot of time on the bench. So
would have kind of faded into the background there, I think, with a lot of other potential academy players as well.
And I'm quite excited about Newcastle this season. I think they've got a good kind of, I mean, apart from all the backroom stuff and the takeover and all that kind of nonsense happening in the background, on the pitch, I think they're some of the signings have been really smart. I'm sure we'll talk about those a little bit later as well. But I really like the look of Newcastle this season.
Newcastle, I think, have rivaled one other team in terms of winning the transfer window in the last couple of weeks, and that other team was Everton, who always seem to win the transfer window. They signed a couple of players in the last couple of days. James Rodriguez, my boy, and Doucouré from Watford, combined 40 million in total. Boys, I'm going to just use this as one transfer to keep things moving. Rate the move for the two of those, yes or no?
Rate it. I'm just curious. Has James taken the jersey number 2014? Because if he hasn't, he probably needs to. Because I mean, we all just still remember that goal, and at least in our group chats, Tommie, you and I are still just dreaming of that moment. And can he replicate it? There's other people that say that he's a little bit overrated because he's still living on something that happened a number of years ago. We will see. But personally, I've always been a big James fan and was a bit gutted after Ancelotti left Real Madrid that he just fell back in the pecking order under Zidane. So just to see him at a club where he's going to get some game time and probably be the main man, at least in the midfield, is exciting. Even though it's to Everton, I'm a bit disappointed he went to Everton because I would have loved to have seen him in a red jersey a couple of years ago. But the fact that he's in the Premier League is very exciting. And Doucouré, on the other hand, that's exactly the kind of player you need to offset someone like James. You need someone who's going to do the work. So it's a good combo.
Killer?
Yeah, he's speaking about Doucouré, was one of those many players on that Watford team that went down that are probably too good for the championship. Great energy, covers obviously very good central CDM, but gets forward as well, and you often find him in the box. Finishing isn't always the best, but maybe that's why you can just tee it off to James to sink it in the bottom corner. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see James in the Premier League. Do I think he's gonna? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm excited to see, but I really don't know if he's gonna cut it.
Interesting. Another duo that have gone made a move in the last couple of days are Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser. Both gone to Newcastle. Callum Wilson for 20 million and Ryan Fraser on a free, both from Bournemouth. Boys, rate the move. Jesse?
Rate the move, especially the Wilson side of things. Fraser, I would rate that part of the move as well because he's a good player, but I mean, he happens to be a terrible human being as well. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of
Callum
press
Wilson is just a mega pest on the pitch. You see him, he walks around and he nudges people in the back, just like off the ball, just to wind people up and stuff. Mega pest.
You'd admire that kind of stuff, there, Tommie, because that's that was your role for our Sunday team. But as far as Fraser goes, Bournemouth are absolutely spitting. I'm not sure if you've read the press about this, but apparently he just basically said he stopped playing for Bournemouth. And if he had have kept playing for Bournemouth, that they would have been potentially saved from relegation. So just a real knife into the cherries before he left, and not a good way to finish up the club. A lot of animosity from his ex-club there. So I'm hoping Wilson does well because I think he's a good player and he deserves to. But I'm not sure how I feel about Fraser now. He's sort of some dirty talk in the papers at least. Not good. Killer, what do you think, mate?
I was just thinking about that thought. I was just thinking of him like eating a cherry and spitting the pip back at it every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Some good signings there as well. Kind of proven goal scorers, which Newcastle have trying to find for quite a while. Fraser was obviously disappointing last season, but there's a lot of stuff going on there that in the background. So hopefully now that he's freed from that, can probably focus on his football and start delivering a few assists and goals for them. I think if he can get back to his form he was 2 seasons ago, Newcastle. That's why I'm quite excited about Newcastle. I think, and with Hendrick as well, adding a bit of energy and kind of attacking flair, I suppose, to the attack. That'd be pretty interesting.
What were Newcastle paying at the TAB, Killer? Just let us know. What's the cheeky wage you've got on them for the season?
I've got nothing on them. I've got no money on them, and I don't think anyone ever should put money on Newcastle. But I think it'd be this season.
Are you a gambler, Killer?
No, not at all.
Only
when it comes to fantasy, and that's just because I've just got massive FOMO if I win the league and I don't get the payout, because I'm always so overconfident.
Fair enough. All right, there's one foreign transfer that we want to cover, and that's the Batman, Michy Batshuayi, who's gone from Chelsea to Palace on loan. I love this deal because Batshuayi always makes just like a big noise on social media, and to see him go to a lower mid-table club like Palace, it warms my heart. Jesse, good move though.
Batshuayi is basically just a Jordan Ayew after a few protein shakes. I mean, it's just
and a better haircut.
Well, I mean that's questionable, but I think one of the this is the only transfer which I've got a few friends who are very pro this because they're like great move for Michy, great move for Palace. You know, you're essentially replacing Benteke, which you're basically replacing a cardboard box. I get it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, he's gone there before, and he occasionally will pop up as a fox in the box. But apart from that, I'm not so convinced by this deal. I think he's failed to live up to his reputation at times, Michy. So he's got a lot to prove, in my opinion.
Does have a lot to prove indeed. Killer, what do you think? Rate it?
Yeah, I think it might be a bit underwhelming as well. I mean, he'll get a handful of goals just because he's got a decent level of ability, but I still think they'll probably stick with Jordan Ayew and Zaha up top like they did at the weekend. Yeah, he'll score goals, but I think once his contract is up at Chelsea, he'll probably leave the Premier League, I reckon.
Fair enough. All right, that pretty much wraps up, I think, all the transfer chat, though. So we'll head on now into the Premier League. So the first match overnight that we're going to be picking apart, I think, is the clear best match from last night, and that was Liverpool hosting Leeds. For me, this is an early candidate for match of the season already because and this game was wild. There was 5 goals in the first half and 7 goals in total. Some of the goals were of real quality, I thought, for both teams, but look, there's quite a bit to unpack here, I actually thought, because this is obviously the first time that a lot of fans will have seen Leeds play if they don't watch the Championship on a regular basis. So it would have been their first exposure to Bielsa ball. Speaking of Bielsa, he signed a new contract during the week. It was one thing that we identified in the preseason preview that his contract basically was expired and he was on a month-to-month deal. So signed a 1-year extension, which keeps him at Leeds at least until the end of the season. Sal makes a great comment. This is the Unbearables Derby, which I think is a fantastic name for it. Jesse, you're obviously a Liverpool fan. I'm sure you stayed up to watch this one, or you got up early to watch the replay. What were your thoughts on Leeds upon their return back to the Premier League?
I thought they were excellent. I think that I'd be more than one-eyed if I woke up this morning and sort of said that they didn't do a good account of themselves. You just only have to watch the game to see how good Leeds were, and it's one thing that shouldn't get sort of tucked under the carpet is the fact that they came back a number of times from a goal down. So psychologically, it's one thing to sort of be in the mix, but it's another thing to go down and have to bounce back and go down and have to bounce back. That took real character in Brendan Rodgers' words. As I said before, Tommie Fitz, who makes a great LHG, has just made a comment about Cock not firm enough at the back. I tell you what, if anybody didn't get the pun already, I think it was a bit of a shame for him because I think he's actually a very good defender, but he obviously was a pretty brutal start to his Leeds career.
He had an absolute mare. Obviously, it was his handball that led to Salah's opener from the penalty spot. Then he was basically just not good enough, not strong enough in the box for Big Verge, I think, to give Liverpool a 2-1 lead at that point after Harrison Reed had equalised for Leeds in the 11th minute. And look, I think it'd be very easy for us just to talk about Liverpool, noting that they got the win. But look, I want to put some respect on Harrison Reed's name because that early Leeds equaliser to make it 1-1 at 11 minutes. That goal was an absolute cracker. Obviously, you had that real sort of like raking pass from Calvin Phillips from deep in the Leeds midfield out to Harrison Reed out on the left, and he's taken that ball down and pretty much skinned both Trent Alexander-Arnold and Gomez in pretty much like 3 touches to then set himself up for a shot. And I believe he actually shot with his weaker foot as well. So, yeah, look, for me, that was a really special goal. And, I mean, we're obviously treated to some more good ones, but that's a pretty early candidate for one of the best goals of the season in my books already.
Agreed. It was sensational.
There were a few more goals. Patrick Bamford opened his account for Leeds in the Premier League after some sloppy defending from Big Verge, and that made it 2-2 in 29 minutes. But then, of course, Mo Salah popped up for his second at this point to make it 3-2 to Liverpool in 32 minutes after fizzing it past the Leeds goalkeeper. Killer, do you think the goalkeeper should have done better for this one, or do you think he was maybe a little bit caught out by the pace of the Salah shot?
Yeah, I really want to back him up in this kind of this situation, but
I think his name's Meslier. I don't know if you have to correct my French pronunciation. Killer,
Melier.
Sure.
Something like that.
Bit of mayo.
Yeah, no, big fan of his, and I'm really excited to see him in the Premier League as well. I'm a big supporter of his previous team, Lorient in France. Got quite a few good exports to the Premier League with kind of Koscielny, Guendouzi, a few others, Jordan Ayew. But yeah, really excited to see him kind of in the Premier League, and I really wasn't impressed with the first or the Van Dijk goal he conceded, where he was kind of backwards onto the line, and he seemed to actually catch the ball, but had he not been backpedaling, he would have obviously saved it pretty comfortably.
It was a strange one. I think his footwork might have let him down a little bit there, which obviously be very disappointed to concede from that position, I think.
Yeah, and I think for the Salah's goal, maybe he was kind of half thinking he was going to go over or just wide. He kind of seemed to dive but not fully commit to it, and it has obviously just crept in. So,
Tommie, I think that goal though, he's put that in a radius of like that was just the perfect shot. Like you look at the replay from the behind angle, and it's like would be pretty harsh to criticize the goalkeeper for that, because it was just a cracking shot, and it was it's the pace, as you say, it was the pace that caught the goalkeeper off guard, and sometimes you just have to accept that it was a rocket.
And I suppose maybe Mele's like movement itself, the fact he kind of seemed to not fully commit to it, maybe it made it look worse for him, and obviously not as good for Salah. But as you said, the placement and the power was pretty terrific as well. So yeah, harsh on the keeper, and I think maybe he just made it look a bit worse than it probably was.
Fair enough. Liverpool had a couple of pretty decent chances early on in the second half to put the game from beyond Leeds' reach. But in the 65th minute, Klitsch, he scored after a long-distance 1-2, which I really enjoy those passages of play. Long-distance 1-2 with Helder Costa. And yeah, then Klitsch has just blasted the ball past Alisson. So that was a goal.
More like clutch, Tommie. How good was that take?
That was look. I thought that was a goal of real quality. I really enjoyed that one because you saw like Klitsch really put his foot down and like charged deep into the box. And I thought, yeah, another really fun goal. I thought for that one. And not just that, but also like Klitsch wasn't the only person to get into the box. I know the commentators directly after the goal were commenting on how many players Leeds had in the box at that point. I mean, it's the 65th minute. They're obviously chasing the game because they're 1 goal down, but there were I counted 5 Leeds players in the box at that point, which, like you mentioned, Jesse, it showed tremendous spirit and will to get into the game, I guess, at that point. The winner came about 5 minutes before the end of time, though, after a big block from Alli, after Mane had played in Firmino. Resulting corner wasn't cleared, and Rodrigo, the new lead signing, took down Firmino. Rodrigo didn't start the games, which was, I guess, a little bit surprising. But then I guess that was pretty much his one contribution to the game. It was a pretty soft penalty, and I reckon he and the manager would both be kicking Rodrigo after the game. Salah made He made no mistake from the penalty spot, and I think that would have really crushed the Leeds players. But obviously, I think they can be really proud of that performance, though. But ultimately, they didn't get anything from it, and they conceded 4 goals. So, look, a couple of questions here from the listeners. First up, last season, Norwich beat City very early on, but then went on a season-defining bad run of form. Do you guys think we'll look back at this as a high watermark for Leeds, or do you think this is just what we're going to be expecting from Leeds this season? Killer?
I think obviously we'll wait and see a few more performances. The fact that they were so willing to just kind of keep committing men forward against that, they're not going to be afraid to keep going and keep trying that. And I think against weaker opposition, they may be able to just completely outscore them. Obviously, conceding 4 goals against Liverpool as a newly promoted team probably isn't that embarrassing. Especially considering there's 2 penalties within that as well. So,
I mean, the first one was a little unlucky, but that second one is just dumb, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it shouldn't have happened. He shouldn't didn't he flinched away from what he thought was going to be a shot, and as he was falling, kind of caught Fabinho's leg. Yeah, it was poor. So I think the fact they're going to be brave and they're going to keep kind of committing men forward. So they'll score lots of goals. Whether they can kind of tidy it up at the back, we'll wait and see.
It's so many little differences about this game. They're playing against last year's champions. The way that Liverpool play and the way that Leeds play means that it's a cocktail of absolute madness when the 2 teams come up against each other. 4-3 is a famous scoreline between Leeds and Liverpool, and not surprising that it ended up being 4-3 the way the 2 teams played. But the key thing here is that Leeds are playing with a point of difference, and that point of difference almost caught Liverpool out because I think the commentator referred to it at one stage as a press fest, and I thought that was probably the best way of describing it. You had 2 teams just like going at each other, trying to play the offside trap. It was just chaos, and smart management from Bielsa. And if he's going to take that kind of strategy against other teams, I'd love to see them play against Man City. With Man City still adjusting their defence and seeing how they get on. It'll be fascinating. So what I like about them is that Norwich tried to play their own brand of football, but were horrendously exposed at the back at times, whereas Leeds might have enough goals in them to actually to be more competitive. So we've only seen one game, as Killian says, so I agree, but I think there's some encouraging signs there.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to move on now, though, to the second match that we're going to cover, which is Fulham hosting Arsenal, Killian's team. Really good timing because Killian, we haven't had you on the pod for a little while, so it's a good time, I guess, to unpack how Arteta's Arsenal evolution is going. Pretty comfortable win for Arsenal overnight, though. Goals from Lacazette, Aubameyang and Gabriel were enough to put a pretty average Fulham side to the sword. Killian, gonna throw to you straight up, though. Is there any major noticeable changes to Arsenal's style this season that you've noticed?
Not so far. I think definitely the intensity and the energy. He's brought in a few players have come in that are able to kind of deliver that, and those who weren't able to kind of keep up with that pace have been kind of pushed to the wayside. So, the obvious one was Ozil as well, and Guendouzi doesn't seem to be kind of in his plans anymore. Although there's some rumours that he's maybe being offered a lifeline. That the press were saying. That's why I was interested to see Elneny come back into the team. I don't know how much more we'll see of him, but he's definitely going to be one of those players who's like willing runner, willing to press, and he'll just say, like, if Arteta asks him to jump, he'll just say how high, and that's the type of player he's going to be. And also looking at the fact that Torreira is probably going to go, or he's kind of looking out the window, he's thinking to go. So we actually don't have that much cover in midfield, especially in that kind of intense defensive kind of midfield role. Other players like Willock, for example, as well, could be a bit more attacking, kind of on the ball players as opposed to an Elneny or Xhaka. So I think he could well end up kind of getting a bit more game time.
Well, that's a good point, and Damo kind of brings that up in one of his questions. He says Arsenal look impressive, albeit against a lackluster Fulham side, but will their midfield of Elneny and Xhaka hold up against any half decent team in the league?
It's a good question. Absolutely, I'm not too sure. I mean, there's been a few players who've really impressed under Arteta. Like Maitland-Niles, for example, was turned into a very average player to a pretty. I mean, at the moment, he's pretty good. And he's definitely kind of put in the work rate that other players maybe. So I'm not too sure actually, but it'd be interesting to see him play, and he's probably got a second chance to make his name at Arsenal, if he's willing to just kind of absolutely just keep running and running and running.
Tommie, I was just going to say on the way that they played, after getting a sort of a good look at it in the Charity Shield that nobody watched a couple weeks ago. I have to say, a crucial goal for Arsenal was the opening one with Aubameyang. Very similar to this goal, guys. Very similar. So they're essentially boxed into the corner. It's Bellerin at right back. They're sort of getting into a position where in previous years Arsenal teams try and play it out, get the ball turned over, and concede a goal. There's a complete travesty. But now last night at least, they had Elneny back there, and they were able to work their way out of that right-hand corner and then just fizz that diagonal, which Willian ended up delivering to Aubameyang. And very, very similar goals to the one in the Charity Shield. What they did by drawing the defence into that right corner where Bellerin inhabits, they actually pulled a lot of the midfield towards that corner because the team's trying to turn over the ball. And that opens up that space for Aubameyang on the diagonal ball. And once he gets the ball, he has about 5 meters or at least 10 meters on his opponent. And he just made that look so easy, that goal. But I think
that's Aubameyang's bread and butter, isn't it? When he's one-on-one against a defender, a little bit of space, allows himself to cut inside, and then you know exactly where the ball's going to end up. Keeper has no chance.
But Arteta knows this, and that's, I guess, that's my main point here is, apart from it being an excellent finish, they know where their strengths are. And a good sign of a manager in the early days is accepting they haven't got the whole squad of what they'd actually like. So what can they do with the tools they have? We saw that with Klopp early days as well. And, Klopp's version of that was Coutinho. And in Arsenal's case, Aubameyang is clearly the talisman. So they've actually just built a strategy about getting it to him and getting space for now. And if they keep doing that, they're going to keep getting goals down that left flank.
Absolutely. And a graphic that I loved as well in that game was kind of the reverse angle from the camera shot behind the goal as Aubameyang scored. Obviously, you could see the bend of the curve of the ball, and that was beautiful. But you could just see Kieran Tierney bursting a gut down his outside and just making that right back a bit hesitant as should he go with Tierney or should he stick to Aubameyang. Gave him the extra kind of yard, give him the space to bend it around. And the work rate from Kieran Tierney, what you're getting every single time from him. One of my favourite signings the last year, and great to see him kind of finally getting a run of games in the team. But that work rate kind of deep into the third quarter or the fourth quarter of the game, creating the space, bombing down the wings. That's the energy that we maybe have lacked in previous seasons with previous managers. And that made the world.
Maybe a shout out to this guy. Look at this absolute badass who just ripped it up for Arsenal last night. Can we get a shout out for him?
And can you believe we got him on a free?
Yeah, that's still I think going to turn out to be a pretty good piece of business for Arsenal. Although I was expecting it to be a little bit jarring seeing him in a red shirt, but Arsenal tried to make the transition as easy as possible by wearing Chelsea blue for the match last night. So good from them. You mentioned Kieran Tierney just now, Killer. He played in a bit of a strange position, sort of a bit of a hybrid between a left fullback in a back four and a left-sided centre-back in a back three. What did you make of that sort of hybrid back three, back four type thing that Arsenal had going on? Yeah,
well, the great thing is he was always where he needed to be at all times. So when we were kind of attacking, he kind of had the work rate to get up, and then I suppose maybe it would have been nice for him to stick beside Gabriel in his first game, just to kind of give him a bit of extra support and kind of at least an out ball as well to the outside. It's working well, and he's getting out that far and probably creating a lot of space for Aubameyang as well by kind of firstly not having too many people out that way. I mean, as he's playing centre mid, centre back, and then kind of bombing forward as kind of a wing back role as well. There's actually not that many people up on that wing against Aubameyang, so it kind of sucks people away from it, and then you can isolate Aubameyang with whoever's the defender at that way. And then at the last minute, he'll kind of come cavaliering forward and offer the extra support. So I really enjoy it. Obviously, if you can do it, great. There's not many left backs who can probably do that.
I like him. We forget that player was Kolasinac in previous seasons, and he just hasn't got that speed. So you definitely noticed watching the game last night, Arsenal having somebody back there that could actually bomb down the line. It added something to their attack.
Well, I guess like 14 months ago it was Nacho Monreal, and I mean he's moved on. I think he's gone back to Spain, but he just didn't have the legs to be able to do that sort of thing anymore. But like Kieran Tierney, he's got a big engine, and I think he fits that system really well. He's got the intelligence and the engine to be able to pull it off. Is there anything else that you two really wanted to pick out from this match before we move on?
Well, just for all the Fulham fans out there, because we haven't spoken about them at all.
Yeah, good point.
Scott Parker, we talked about his pants being quite tight. That was a highlight, but I suppose that's where the highlights kind of finished for them. I actually thought in the start of the game...
Jesse, just on the topic of Scotty Parker's suit, he said that Andy Corponita is obviously one of the MTAG OG members. He said in our group chat that Scott Parker's dry cleaner had a better pressing system than Fulham, and I thought that joke cannot go unheard. That is fantastic.
Well, he will need to have a little bit of a look at himself, apart from in the mirror with the crinkles on his blazer. He will need to have a bit of a look at himself about how he didn't adjust a few things, because Fulham got shell-shocked, and he looked a bit shell-shocked as well. Like, I mean, the commentators were talking about this sideways ball getting intercepted from the Arsenal press, and it just happened over and over again. They looked really exposed, and you didn't have to be a football scientist to watch the game and actually be seeing that they were doing the same thing over and over again. They looked really tidy in possession. So at the first 20 minutes, they actually looked quite good. I thought this actually could be a decent game, but they had no incision at the final
penetration.
Part. They get to the right back or the left back, and then they just sort of turn around, look for Kearney, and be like, "Where's the number 10? Is he going to do something?" Head whipping across. There's no Mitrovic on at that point, of course, and they didn't seem to have anybody looking like they were going to attack the ball in the box. So it just shows you how reliant they are on Mitrovic to come up with those headers and get on the end of those crosses. So they're going to have a plan B, basically.
Yeah, mate, and look, what you just mentioned hasn't gone unnoticed either. Got a couple of great stats here, which I think sort of sum up that point that you're kind of making. So last year in the Championship, Fulham had the second highest possession stats after Leeds, but they were 5th for shots and 11th for shots in the box. So like that is kind of, I guess, a statistical breakdown of what you're kind of describing, which is holding the ball in safe areas, sort of on the halfway between sort of Kearney and whoever's partnering him in sort of that deeper midfield position, and really them not doing a hell of a lot with it. And even though Mitrovic was, I think he might have been top scorer in the Championship last year, his shot like sort of conversion percentage is actually really, really low. So look, originally I thought Fulham were going to possibly be okay this season, but look, the closer I look, and now that I've see them under the eye test, look, I think Fulham are going to be in real trouble this season. So scary times, I think, ahead for the Fulham fans. Yeah. Let's move on though. Sorry, Killer.
I was just going to say a lot of players who were previously in the Premier League and effectively, like, obviously got relegated with that same team. I mean, there's a few different changes to it, but it's very similar to the team that got relegated a couple of seasons ago.
It is, yeah.
Fond of it, so I still don't think they'll be good enough. They haven't improved enough since then.
And just on Callum's comment there about Arsenal being super organised, I have to agree. Arteta looks like the kind of guy that have all his pencils colour coded on his managerial table. He just seems like the kind of guy that's really down to the fine details. So I think they are pretty organised under him.
Very good. All right. Without any further ado, we'll keep moving on though to West Ham hosted Newcastle at home, and look, this game was a hell of a lot of fun. During the week, there was a poll about how fans across the league were feeling about their team's chances this year. I think Southampton would first as being the most optimistic fans about their upcoming season. I think 99% of their fans were optimistic about the upcoming season, and 8% of West Ham fans said they were optimistic about this season. So, yeah, pretty grim time, I think, for West Ham fans. And look, I think you listeners of the pod would understand that I'm pretty it's pretty hard to rattle me about West Ham's chances, but yeah, even I'm not feeling great about this season starting. So, look, this game between West Ham and Newcastle could have been billed as, I guess, either the shit owners derby or the trackies manager derby. Both managers, Moyes and Steve Bruce, love to rock their trackies in the dugouts. But look, this game actually, it was reasonably even in the first half in terms of chances created, but Newcastle did by some distance look probably the better team in terms of their build up and such. But it did take quite a while for West Ham to really build into the game, probably 25-30 minutes before they really sort of created any clear chances, or it felt like they were sort of in with a shot of getting something from this game. And I think at one point, I think it was at halftime, where both teams had only had one shot on target. So it gives you a bit of an idea of that both of these teams probably going to be in the lower half of the table at least, and that there wasn't heaps of quality on show, even if it was sort of end to end. Newcastle, they opened the scoring in, I think it was the early on in the second half. Javier Manquillo, his cross took a deflection, and Jeff Hendrick was able to get a touch before Callum Bloody Wilson nipped in before the West Ham goalkeeper Fabianski to score. And of course, it was Callum Wilson, because he always scores against West Ham. He scored 8 goals in his last 9 appearances for Newcastle and Bournemouth against West Ham. So, a couple of certainties in life: death taxes and Callum Wilson scoring against West Ham. Boys, did you have any other takeaways from this match that or anything that particularly caught your eye, Jesse?
Shut the transfer window. Jeff Hendrick's the real deal. Always said it. What a peach of a goal. I think I quoted on the pod a week or so ago that if the transfer window was to shut now and it ends at Jeff Hendrick, then that'll be pretty depressing. But to his credit, he finished the game off nicely for Newcastle, and he's probably going to complement some of those other players in the team. They look like they've got a bit more depth now, which Newcastle have been sorely lacking. So that's positive for them. On the West Ham side of things, followed a similar pattern to a lot of the games pre that kind of. I know that there were some good performances near the end of the year last year, but before then, when West Ham were really struggling, very similar traits in this game. I mean, Souček bombing forward, looking like he was going to run through a brick wall as usual, and doing his best. And you want to see that kind of commitment, or anybody wants to see that kind of commitment. But as far as the finishing, they looked a little bit lost at times. Newcastle looked like they were creating a little bit more, especially in the second half. And I think it's a frustrating situation for Hammers fans at the moment. And I just think that, I suppose for this game, if we just isolate this game, I think we need to talk more about Newcastle being a bit more impressive than necessarily West Ham's failings, because I think Newcastle just looked like they wanted it more.
Yeah, well, I think there are a couple of key tactical things that Newcastle did that were quite successful as well. They used Andy Carroll, I thought, to really good effect as well. Basically, just sort of not always going long to Andy Carroll, but quite often going long to him, and then trying to win a flick on from Andy Carroll's head to either St. Maximum or Wilson. In fact, it turned out to be a very successful strategy for them. Andy Carroll won 12 headers in the game, which, I mean, the next best was Ogbonna with 5 and Antonio with 4. So showed how often they were doing it, but also how successful he was at winning those headers and flick-ons for Newcastle.
Is this the Andy Carroll derby now, Tommie? I mean, are we calling it?
We could. In fact, so Kevin Nolan, who was I think he's one of the coaches or assistant manager at West Ham at the moment for David Moyes. I'm pretty sure he captained both teams under Sam Allardyce as well. So it's the Kevin Nolan derby as well. But yeah, look, pretty average performance I thought from West Ham, and particularly Michail Antonio. He obviously came home with a real wet sail in the second half of the season after lockdown finished, but he looked really rusty, I thought, tonight. And there were a couple of times where he took a shot, but when you sort of you try to create a little bit of space for yourself before you get off a shot, and he wasn't creating space for himself. He would just shoot straight into a defender, and at this level, you would kind of expect better, I would think. And I think fans who are expecting Michail Antonio to light up the league in the next couple of weeks, I think they could be excited, but look, happy to be proven wrong. Killer, anything that caught your attention from this game?
No, it was good. I think Newcastle, I mentioned, it was great to see Hendrick, and I think Burnley will probably miss or will probably regret not extending his contract, because a goal and assist on your debut is not a bad return. And just provides very good energy as well. And he's maybe a little bit more physical than Almiron, who obviously is pretty kind of small stature. I thought down the left, Maximin and Lewis kind of combined well at times, because Maximin, just his trickery, he sucks in a few players as well, and kind of left Jamal Lewis kind of on the outside isolated a few times. So that worked pretty well. And he had a few nice crosses in for Wilson, who didn't quite finish those chances, but I'm sure there'll be plenty more in the kind of next few weeks. So, I'm impressed with them so far.
You talk about Alan Saint-Maximin. I got a stat for you. He was the most fouled player on the field during this game. Boys, do you want to have a guess as for how many times he was fouled? Any plucks?
8 times.
Bingo.
8. Fuck.
8 times, yeah. So, look, there were a few times where West Ham were pretty much just doubling up on him, and I think Fredericks in particular, I thought he did an okay job on him, but, Saint-Maximin is just such a tricky player. It reminds me a little bit of some of those, like, freestyle footballer, like Instagram or YouTube clips where he's just doing, like, step-overs for fun and all sorts of things. You expect him to just start sort of doing keep-ups or something like that, but, yeah, anyway.
I suppose if there's an at the end of those runs as well, like there's a particular moment I'm thinking of where he just seemed to be going on this kind of mazy nothing run to his inside, but he sucked in 2 or 3 West Ham players, just couldn't lay a foot on him, and that's when Lewis was able just to kind of cruise around the outside, and Maximin was going nowhere, but sucked in players and kind of created space for this as well, which is I think I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of that this season as well.
Well, and I guess that point you make it about sort of Saint-Maximin not knowing where he's going. I'm not sure if he knows. Not sure if he knows where he's going sometimes, and that's why he gives me those like freestyle footballer vibes, because I reckon I swear sometimes he must forget that he's actually playing a football game and that the objective is to score goals, not just to do like bulk step overs. All right, so we'll move on now to the final match that we're going to cover, which is Crystal Palace hosting Southampton. 3 years to the day since Roy Hodgson was appointed at Crystal Palace, and I tell you what, this was a real typical Roy Hodgson Crystal Palace performance. They went up really early, I believe it was on the 12th minute, through Wilf Zaha after he and Andros Townsend combined, and I actually thought it was a really good finish by Zaha at the back stick. And from there, you always wondered, is Southampton going to have the quality to be able to break down a pretty resolute Crystal Palace defence? In the end, they were unable to do so. And that was kind of, even without Crystal Palace missing, I think, 5 first choice defenders, or maybe the 5th one is a little bit questionable about what his first choice, but they were missing Ben Arnholt, Tompkins, Sacco, and Gary Cahill. So that could quite easily be their first choice back 4. And they were also missing young Nathan Ferguson, who I believe he was expected to fill in for Tompkins at right back when he was injured, but then, Ferguson got injured as well. They even had Chekiate, who's normally a midfielder. He ended up starting at centre back, and I thought he did really well for them. ultimately, Southampton weren't able to break down Palace, and even though Palace ended up giving away a lot of fouls, they gave away 14 fouls, which was by far the most fouls given away overnight. And you would sort of think, oh yeah, with James Ward-Prowse playing for Southampton, maybe they've got a chance. But yeah, they were putting in a lot of crosses from wide areas and deeper areas, and I mean those tall Crystal Palace centre backs, I think it was Scott Dan and I think it was Joel Ward. They were just eating up those headers, and Southampton ultimately couldn't break them down. Interesting one in this game on the 48th minute. Kyle Walker-Peters was sent off for a clumsy late challenge. He was pretty much sort of incensed at the decision, a little bit surprised, and then VAR got involved. Boys, did you see this one? What were your thoughts?
Correct call. Sent a few shudders down my back because Walker-Peters is in both my regular fantasy and draft.
You doubled down on him.
I was going to be spewing if he got sent off there. Yeah, I mean, I think we need more of that. I mean, obviously, if the guy goes off on a stretcher, it makes the decision a little bit, harder for the referee. But if everyone's kind of okay and recovering, and you can see it was clearly unintentional, I'm happy for a yellow to be presented there, because not just in football but in any sport, a red card, is a devastating blow to a team. It massively compromises the spectacle and the game. And if you can regrade it as yellow, if there's room for that, like, I'm happy to see that, as long as there hasn't been any serious injury. Yeah, so I'm happy to see it go back to a yellow. It seemed like the sensible thing to do.
Killer?
Yeah, you've seen him given, but I think thankfully the fact they're both in the air meant that any kind of contact, like, it didn't make it worse by having any kind of studs on the ground or anything like that. So, yeah, I think a yellow was probably the right call. It was late, he called him, but no major harm done. So happy for it to be kind of brought back to a yellow.
Fair enough. Now, apologies, I can't remember who said it as, I think, their moment of the week, but we've already had a mention about Huerta for it. Vicente Huerta, the Palace goalkeeper.
Jeez, got some layer with that.
He made a couple of really good saves, both in the second half. One from Shay Adams, and the other one was from Ings late in injury time as well. And so, I mean, those two saves, obviously, they're the difference between Palace winning or losing, and possibly also getting the 3 points. And he, I think, could have been called Palace's man of the match just for those two saves alone. It's like I was saying, it changes the game if he doesn't make one of those saves.
And if he keeps putting those performances in, then you're going to keep talking about him, and I can't wait for more. Tommie, it's a fantastic bit of pronunciation from yourself, so good from you.
I'm glad you appreciate it, mate. Alrighty, that's just the 4 matches from overnight. There are a couple of matches that are postponed, both Manchester United, Manchester City, Burnley, and I think Wolves are the 4th team that don't play this weekend. But there's still another 4 matches to be played, both tonight and Monday. First up, boys, we'll do a couple of, I guess, predictions for these. First up is West Brom are going to be hosting Leicester City. Leicester are missing Johnny Evans and obviously Ricardo Pereira as well. And James Maddison, I believe, is doubtful. West Brom don't appear to have any major fitness issues, so full squad available to them, even if most of them are garbage anyway. Boys, have you got any predictions for this one? Can West Brom stay in it?
1-1.
Killer?
I think comfortable enough from Leicester. It's a good challenge for West Brom. Early game against probably one of the kind of upper mid-table teams, probably challenging for Europe as well. Good challenge in your first game. Not too much pressure, I suppose, to win it. Just as long as I think that the aim for them is to try and stay in it, because if they get kind of blown away in their first game, they could kind of knock the win kind of out of their sails for this season.
1-1 for me. Robinson and Vardy to score.
Ooh. Yeah. That is a big call, because, I mean, obviously we know that Leicester were in bad form at the end of last season, obviously shitting the bed, and then not able to finalise a Champions League spot, ended up finishing 5th. So it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not Leicester can start the season with a bang against a team that I think almost in everyone on the More Than a Game panel said would finish dead last by a long, long way.
Most draws, though, Tommie. We were told that they had the most draws, I think, in the championship. So they know how to get a grind out of results at home, at least. So, I reckon that's why we'll see a draw tomorrow. But I could be wrong.
Fair enough. Next up, we got Spurs hosting Everton. Spurs don't really seem to have any injury doubts other than possibly Lo Celso's in doubt. Everton are missing Gabaman and Mason Holgate, whilst Fabian Delph is in doubt. Killer, who do you think? Who are you picking?
Close one. I suppose maybe Spurs, maybe to edge it. But just because they've got that quality up top with kind of Hansa Min and Harry Kane, so I think there'll be a couple of goals in it. But I think Spurs will just edge it out. I think Everton probably need a bit more time, especially with all the new signings to gel and also to kind of give them a bit of freedom. I think James, I don't know if he'll actually play. It would be interesting to see him play because that'll be a big test against that defense in midfield at Spurs.
Yeah, I think you would. You're more likely to see Decore step straight into that Everton midfield than James, I think. Jesse, what are your thoughts, mate? Who are you picking?
Yeah, I think Everton will show a good account of themselves, but I think it's probably going to be a 2-1 win for Spurs.
Interesting. Next up, we got Damo Sheffield United are going to be hosting Wolves. Sheffield United obviously going to have Aaron Ramsdale making his debut and going to have a full squad available. Wolves are missing Johnny Castro. Killer, who do you think is going to take the points here?
Oh, I think this has got a draw or not in my mind. I think Sheffield probably. I think they won't be as competitive as they were last season. I suppose after the lockdown last season as well, they probably weren't the same team as they were at the start. So, and I think I'm not sure. I think I see a draw on this just because it'd be Sheffield at home. I think Wolves are probably the slightly better team, but away from home, I think Sheffield will ground out the draw.
Jesse,
not the first Castro to go missing in recent weeks, Tommie. I tried to get you there while you're going for your drink.
You got me, yeah.
I reckon a draw. I think Killer's right. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be vintage Wolves or vintage Shoe, but I think it'll be a 1-1. Fleck to get the goal for Sheffield United and Jimenez to score the one for Wolves. 1-1.
I just realised, I think about 5 minutes ago, I said that Wolves didn't have a game, and now I'm sitting here thinking, hang on, I thought I said Wolves don't have a game, so it's Villa who don't have a game. Finally, the last match is going to be Brighton hosting Chelsea. Chelsea, obviously, big spenders over the last couple of months. And as Sal points out, they brought in a couple of big signings. Havertz is first. Timo Werner, obviously, another big one. Salah, but before we get into your predictions, fellas, Brighton are going to be missing Davy Proper, Izquierdo and Andone, whilst Chelsea are going to be missing Kovacic, Ziyech, Chile B and Thiago Silva. Sal asks, how long is it going to be before Havertz becomes a flop like Morata at Chelsea? Jesse? How many months? How long in months?
Well, it depends. It depends if you think it's going to be a flop or not. By all accounts, this guy is meant to be the real deal, and I think we've certainly seen that Morata was a real flop at Chelsea. So there's no denying that part of the question. But I'm as non-Chelsea. I'm the most non-Chelsea kind of person to talk about this, but I actually think Havertz is going to be a success at Chelsea. Maybe not necessarily straight away, but I think he will be a success. He just seems like too good a player not to have an imprint on the team, and I think the same could be said for Werner as well. So I think I think Werner's going to hit the ground running a little quicker than Havertz. I might be embarrassed tomorrow when Havertz scores a double or something, but I think Werner is the kind of player you can slot into any team with a very minimal prep, and he can get you a goal. Whereas Havertz might just need some time to sort of start to figure out what the best side is for him. For example, he's playing on the right flank, I think. We'll see what the formation's like tomorrow, but I think he's going to be starting on the right flank, and I see him as more of a central attacking mid in the middle there. I know he can play pretty much any position, but I kind of see him as sitting in behind Werner. is the better position. So can he do that until some of the other players are fit? Like, because I imagine he goes into the centre when Ziyech is fit and goes out to the right. So, yeah, is he going to be as good tomorrow in his first game when he's maybe not in his best position? We'll find out. But I think he will be a success at Chelsea. So,
yeah, Killer.
It's tough for Frank Lampard to know how to fit everyone in as well. Obviously, Werner is probably going to be the starting striker, but you've got a few other kind of decent attacking options. Pulisic had a good end to the last season, so I'm excited to see Havertz. Actually, I couldn't tell you if he's going to be a hit or not, but I want him to be, and that's why I'm quite frustrated with those Chelsea signings as well. There's a lot of players there that I quite like and don't want them to do well in Chelsea. Also,
Me
don't
too.
want to do well.
I just can't wait for Havertz to be one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and everyone is going to be screaming at their TV, Havertz it!
Jeez.
Alrighty, boys, very quickly give us your prediction for what the score is going to be with this one. Killer?
Prediction for score this one, I think comfortable winners, Chelsea kind of 2-3, maybe 2-3-1. 2 or 3 to Brighton's 1.
Jesse?
I think I'm going to give Brighton a shout here, lads. I think they're going to get a point out of this. I think no one sees it coming, but don't underestimate Potter and his strategies. He the only reason why he got pants last season against Liverpool when he played really well was because they got dispossessed a couple of times. But this is a Chelsea team that's still figuring itself out. It's almost a new team in some areas. So I think Brighton's got a shout here, boys. I think they're going to get a point out of this.
Jesse, you're really putting the cat amongst the seagulls here. Alrighty, let's move on though. That wraps up the Premier League from last night and also our predictions. But look, as anyone who follows More Than a Game on Facebook or Twitter has seen over the last couple of days, I've been absolutely flogging the guts out of More Than a Game's FPL comp. So thank you to the 36 people who signed up and paid their fee for More Than a Game's Fantasy Premier League comp this year. I did say that more than happy for people to jump into the league and they can still play, still join along if they don't want to pay the fee. Just means you can't win a prize, but look, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. On the topic of prizes, we'll be handing out a prize for the best monthly score for each month over the course of the season, and I'll be announcing that on the pod each month. So stand by in about 4 weeks' time for that. We'll also be handing out a major prize for the overall winner, and that'll be announced in our Premier League review pod at the end of the season. Once the prize pool has been finalised in the next couple of weeks, I'll be announcing what the actual amounts are going to be. So, no, it's not going to be $2 for getting a monthly prize or for getting a monthly best monthly score. I do want to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of the best team names that I've seen so far. First up, Killian in the name of, I like that one from Michael Wise from ESPN. McGinn and Tonic, it's Peter Steinfurt's. Finding Timo, another good one. Mike Pulisic, another good one. PK Blinders is one that kind of feels familiar, but I don't remember it from last season, so I've pulled it out again. That's Nicholas. This is a really long Dutch or German name, so forgive me. Hohensalars. Finally, a couple more. Childish Firmino is Xavier Cordier. When Harry Met Pally is Mark Nielsen's. Absent Dad Aaron is our own Colby's team. And ex Greenwood is Rahul Warrior as well, which if you listeners from the pod last week or our preview pod will remember, pretty much the same joke on ex Grealish, sorry. So I appreciated that one too. Look, we do have an early leader after 4 matches and half of game week 1, and that's Mikey E. Jones' Serbian Mitrovic's, who was one of the lucky ones to captain Mo Salah. So he's on a lazy 69 points straight up. So well done, Mikey. But look, that's all I've got for FPL, and it's all we've got time for here on More Than a Game. So look, don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can get in touch with us either on Facebook or Twitter, or of course you can always get a hold of us on More Than a Game email, which is mtagpodcast@gmail.com. That wraps things up for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you next week.